Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, May 5th, and we are here with Ernest Harris, who is a amazing and very well informed and educated precinct government educator, lecturer. I'm going to let him list or state his own list of accolades. But Ernest is going to begin a series of educational presentations to help bring all of us into a much more informed and just well-rounded view of precinct government, politics itself, especially local politics. We are here in Cleveland, Ohio, by the way, and I am in the home of Ernest Harris, and we are beginning this taping to really bring and drive home and communicate the absolute need and essence and timing of having these kind of political discussions at the precinct level. So, without any further ado, Ernest, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and just tell everyone what you want them to know?
Yeah, my name is Ernie Harris, and for you to get a whole uh, look at the picture of what I'm doing, I got to take you back a little bit to when I was a younger person. Well, when I was a younger person growing up in Chicago, I had the pleasure to meet Reverend James Bevel. Reverend James Bevel was Dr. King's strategist. He's the one that did all the strategizing for the movements that they participated in. I was playing basketball on a basketball court. Reverend Bevel was in Chicago, and as he passed the courts, he came over, took a little switchblade knife and cut our basketball, and told us to go over to the church. Dr. King was in town. You better go over there and listen to him. So I figured anybody with that much chutzpah in Chicago who will walk on a basketball court on the south side and cut people basketball, I better go over there and hear Dr. King.
Wow.
So I did. I went over and listened to Dr. King, and from then on, my life was changed. Dr. King challenged us as young people to go with him out into Cicero, Illinois, and march to protect the marchers. And we asked, well, how are we going to do that, Dr. King? He said, well, bring your baseball gloves. So we brought our baseball gloves to the Cicero March, and we participate on the outside of the marches. So as white people was throwing rocks at us, we just took our gloves and caught them and put them to the ground because he challenged us. He said, if you can't be nonviolent, don't get in the movement. And we were young at the time, didn't thoroughly understand what he was talking about. We certainly learned in a hurry. And so when white people throwing bottles and rocks and stuff, we would catch them with our gloves and put them on the ground all the way through the movement.
Wow.
Now, since then, later on, as I finished college and moved to Cleveland, I met Reverend James Bevel again in 1979 when we was having a school boycott and picketing. And Reverend Bevel come in town. He said, look, I got a science I want to teach you guys that if you learn it, it will teach you how to organize and govern yourself for eternity.
Now, what year was that?
Now, this was 1979 in Cleveland.
Okay.
Okay. And so from then until the death of Reverend Bevel, I stayed with him as a student, learning about the science of human and community development. What is human and community development? That's the science of educating and healing a man so that man can heal the land.
Mm-hmm.
So in this science that he taught us, it includes 6 institutions: church, government, business, home, clinic, and school. That if people do not run those institutions in their communities, that they have no access to government.
Now, do you think that this is a particular need in Black communities? Is this what you would call a Black science?
Yes.
Or is this applicable to all races? Or is it something that we as Blacks specifically need to look at because of so many of the gaping holes in our culture and our existence?
Well, let me tell you where it come from. Reverend Bevel was telling us in the workshop, he said now he had a dream and a vision of Dr. King. And he asked Dr. King in that vision, he said, now, if you've seen the promised land, where is it at? Why don't we know where the promised land is? So if we have to get there, we certainly have to work toward it. Mm-hmm. And he said, Dr. King told him, said, Jim, it's been with us all the time. It was locked in the Lord's Prayer. He said, in the Lord's Prayer is let me just take you through this a minute, then I'll come back to why it helps increase in government. In the Lord's Prayer, there's 6 laws, 6 sciences, 6 institutions, and 6 drives. He said, now, when the Bible said man should always pray and not faint, it means that man should always run his institutions as it relates to the Lord's Prayer. Now, can you imagine somebody running their institutions in their community, their church, their government, their business, their clinic, home, and school, and they wouldn't want for anything because their power is underneath them to do it. So what happened is that Reverend Bevel, when he told Reverend Bevel that, Reverend Bevel worked it out till it come down to a science. You see the little graph up there. It talks about the precinct people, those underneath the precinct people, and those committees being ran by precinct people to serve their own interests. Now, today is just an overview. The next 4 sessions, I am planning on going through each one of these institutions, showing how the institutions work, showing how the institutions will support and help the community. For instance, the institution of church is supposed to teach us principles. The problem with our boys in the street is that they don't have principles. They'll kill anybody for anything, for any amount of money. Mm-hmm. They don't have any principles. The institution of government, is to teach us order. How do we live together without killing each other? How do we live together without stealing from each other? How do we live together helping and working together with each other? The institution of business teach us work. Any business, for instance, say your daily bread. Your daily bread comes as a result of your work. Mm-hmm. If you don't work, you don't eat. Mm-hmm. The institution of clinic, that's the institution that teaches us health. What should we eat to maintain perfect health? And there is a science, and I'll take you through it and show it to you. The institution of home teaches us procreation. That's how you reproduce yourself in a home setting without being one of those men who go around town smelling like every woman and don't know none of them. Right. So it teaches us the holiness and the sacredness of the home and child rearing. The institution of school teaches us knowledge. Jesus say, to be free, you have to know the truth. And where do you find knowledge? In the school setting? Not only in the public school setting like we have, but in a educational setting.
Now, my first question would be, how would this message resonate and how would you articulate it to those who don't embrace religion, who don't embrace Christianity? How would you make this message universal or universally received and applicable to those who, they may be Muslim, they may be spiritual, they may be anything but Christians. So that's a very important dynamic in today's world because we see so much ineffectiveness in the Black church, and it is really an important message that you have. But how would it cross the lines within our culture, especially?
Well, now if you take the Star of David had what? 6 points to it, right? Okay. Each point represents an institution. Okay. So the Jews run their institution. Right. That's why they don't go through the same stuff we go through. Okay. You see the Muslims, they also have these 6 institutions incorporated in their religion. Okay. All over the world, no matter what country you go to, you have these same 6 institutions undergirding the country.
Okay.
So anybody from anywhere should understand that every community need to have a church, government, business, a clinic, a home, and school.
Right.
So you don't even have to get into the religious part. As Christians, that's where we got it from. We got it from our God, because our God taught us. Ezekiel saw the wheel turning way up in the middle of there, and the big wheel ran by faith, but the little wheels on it was ran by God. Those are the 6 institutions that was riding on the big wheel. That's what we got. But there's a passage in the Bible that says, and this was the true light that lit it to every man coming into the world. Every man coming here already know the truth. He's just been so distant from it that when you introduce this back into his life, he'll say, yes, that's right.
Well, I think that this is very important, and we have about 3 minutes left on this. But I think it's very important that we pursue these conversations, because our communities are in such chaos and peril, and they are so divided. We need to have these conversations of informing one another and at least trying to establish some rational consensus as to how we're going to take control of our own destinies, because as we can see, leaving them up to the leadership that we see ourselves presently in, that has not worked out for us at all, or well in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And with our political climate the way it is, if we don't learn precinct government, how power works, how all these things that drive our realities work, then we're going to be continuously left.
Let me put this last thing into it.
Okay.
A precinct person is the most powerful person in the United States.
Okay.
A precinct person have access to raise as much money as he wants for his precinct, to do those things that the precinct need without being challenged by any other form of government. Let me tell you, they have been using precinct people as vote hustlers.
Okay.
When people get ready to vote, get the vote out. But a precinct person is not a vote hustler. He's a legitimate elected entity to serve that 3 or 4 blocks that he live on. Wow. And without that, you have no access to local government.
Wow, that's powerful. And with just a few seconds left to go, we will be coming back with another part 2 of this powerful discussion with Earnest Harris. Thank you all very much.